What's up, boys? This is GM Chris from the Order 66 podcast. And as one GM who runs a dead game to another, love the show. Every week I tune in to roll some initiative.
Correctly with the correct amount.
D20 Radio, where gamers roll.
www.d20radio.com.
Roll for initiative.
Welcome back, folks, to the Roll for Initiative podcast, issue number 34. Yes, we're getting up there in numbers, and this week is our special Halloween episode. We're going to bring you
the Halloween issue. That's
right. We're going to bring you everything spooky that's not spooky, and, well, Nick's talking, so that's spooky enough. What do you think?
Hey!
I am DM Vince, your host, along with my other host, DM Nick, and DM Jason. How you doing, guys?
Hey. Doing all right.
So we got a great show this week, right, guys?
Absolutely. We got the one we've been waiting for, with all of the forums buzzing and giving us ideas. Thanks, everybody. We're going to try to do some of those ideas tonight, as you'll hear.
And we're going to have some spooky, scary stuff to talk about.
And that's going to end the show for tonight. Goodbye.
Quiver already.
Yes.
So let's take care of business and we can move on real quick. What's going on with the website?
All right, so we have a great new +2 to save from Todd Hughes, who is, by the way, almost ready to go with his new module, which I'll announce the name of as soon as it's out. But we're all kind of doing a little bit of work on that. I'm actually doing the layout for it, and then Hanai, who does all of our great artwork for Roll for Initiative, is working on a really great demon for the cover. So that'll be pretty scary, too. But his article that he has up right now is perfectly appropriate for Halloween. It is all about zombies.
Loving it.
It's called Brains for Dinner, Brains for Lunch. And Todd has created his own type of zombie, one that's a little bit more deadly to take down. So I definitely would recommend people go and check that out on the site.
I like it.
Cool.
Yeah.
Buzz put up his article too, I believe.
Oh, yeah. Wait, let me take a look.
That one.
The tetrahedral? Is that his?
Yeah, he had another one that we talked about briefly the last time, but he finally published it.
Oh, maybe I missed it. Hang on a second. Let's take a look here. Is that Let Me Hear the Money Talk, or is...
One of the articles.
Okay. Well, yeah, definitely go and take a look. I don't see... Actually, maybe he hasn't published it yet, but I know Buzz has got some... PC Buzz has got some new stuff going up, so...
And the forums are buzzing like heck.
I actually showed up.
It's about time.
I actually posted something this time.
Yeah, it's about time.
I might have to go on and see. So Chuck is still our top poster.
Well, actually, he's not.
He's not?
Actually, Last was our top poster, but I moved her into the moderator section.
That's
right. So Chuck is our top poster at the moment.
Oh, yes. He was dethroned for a while, though.
Yeah, Last was practically doubling his numbers in post at one point.
Wow. Well, then, congratulations, Lass, on being our first community moderator.
Yes.
Yay.
She is the enforcer there right now. So
Huzzah.
Huzzah is right.
So Chuck is one of the few people that is up to Thaumaturgist.
Mm-hmm.
But we have a few people up to things like Theurgist, like Red. So, people are moving up in the levels on the forum. And a lot of really good stuff in there. And even a couple of things in the flea market I see. So that's nice.
Yeah, there was a really good tip on Facebook about following those forums.
Yes, I don't know who said it, but they were right. You can actually follow there's a group RSS that you can click on, and you can just put it in a feed for your favorite RSS reader.
Yes, it's at the bottom left-hand side, and it's a lot easier to navigate through that than it is the forums. So.
Can be.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
And so, Nick, stars, what do we got? What are we pimping for?
Yeah, we got a couple stars on iTunes again. 2 5-star ratings.
Ah, beautiful.
First one is from DM Iron Fist.
Oh.
And he says, "My day, Dungeon Masters and Delinquents." He says, Hello, DMs. This is DM Iron Fist. Love the show. I started playing D&D with 3.5 edition, but shifted over to AD&D First Edition because I find that it's a better system that provides for better role-playing. I'm only 15 and a sophomore in high school as well as a dungeon master. So it's nice to kick back after a stressful day at school and listen to one of your shows, even if it's just a rerun. Keep up the good work.
All right. Now I know who that is.
Cool.
Okay. I've actually chatted to him a couple of times online.
Oh, did you?
Real smart guy, really cool guy. He taught me some stuff about Bruce Lee that I didn't know. So cool dude.
Oh,
he has
sweet.
Has an email for us later on in Sage Advice too.
Oh,
Excellent,
great! Wow.
Excellent.
And here's our other one from James Carpio. He said, "The podcast I have been waiting for." So,
James Carpio. That's the Icons guest director.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, he says, I am very picky when choosing a podcast to listen to. I go on and off with most, but Roll for Initiative has a lot to offer. The hosts are entertaining, informative, and have a passion for the game and topics. I would recommend this podcast to anyone who has a love for AD&D First Edition, old gamers like myself, or anyone who just wants to be entertained and learn a bit of gaming history. Take a listen. I know you will be hooked. So, thank you, Mr. Carpio. That's awesome stuff.
Awesome. If you want to jump on iTunes and give us a rating, we'll read it as well. Anytime,
Yep.
Get your shouted out name with the 5 stars.
Absolutely. We'll read it out no matter what it is.
Yes, even the 4 stars.
Even the 4 stars. You betcha.
Okay, I think we'll head over into Sage Advice.
Sage Advice.
Okay, Sage Advice. Tonight we have a voicemail and an email, but we'll start off with the voicemail, who comes in directly from Lass, and we'll play that right now, guys. Here we go.
Hi, this is Lass, and I have a question for the RFI podcast. So, in light of this being Halloween, I was wondering if you guys could tell us what's some of the best ways for creating a mood that might fit the holiday spirit. How does one convey a sense of doom and dread in their Dungeons & Dragons game? Happy Halloween, fellas. Bye-bye.
So how will we do that? Well, we'll have to answer that in the next segment.
Yeah, in the next. But I do have one question for Lass. Is she from Ireland?
Yes.
Okay.
She's from Ireland to New York now, she says.
Oh, okay. So she's she moved from Ireland to New York. Okay, cool. Well,
I think she was actually going to join Jason in one of those games that he was planning.
You never know. We've been getting I'm discovering so many different gaming groups here in the city that I think at one point or another probably our paths will cross.
Cool. Okay.
I did mention, didn't I, the gaming group Redbox?
Yes.
The Redbox gamers here? Yeah.
yes.
I just
yes,
wanted
you did.
to say I don't think we've talked since I played Gamma World with those guys.
Oh, yeah.
The other week. About 4 of the guys from Redbox. Really cool bunch. They're kind of a similar thing to what the Dead Game Society is doing over in Chicago. And I just wanted to mention that if anybody's interested, we should put a link up to the Redbox gamers because they're really cool.
Cool.
Oh, cool, all right.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Lass. We'll be answering that question next segment as we've based our table manners around that for setting the mood. But let's get on to our first written email. It comes from DM Iron Fist. Yeah.
Hey, sounds familiar. I think I heard that guy's name before.
He says, "Hi, guys. Love the show. 5 stars to you. Thank you. This email is concerning Lass's question in Sage Advice of issue number 33. In the question, she asked if monks could dodge any attack with the saving throw, and if you declare that it can only be done for missile attacks, and you declared it can only be done for missile attacks, excuse me. However, you never addressed the line after the missile part, which caused the question in the first place, quoted from the player's handbook, ... In other respects, if a monk makes his or her saving throw against an attack form, the monk will sustain no damage from the attack, even if the attack form was a fireball, for instance. Last was trying to get across that it does not specify an attack form, therefore melee is counted. Any form of help would greatly be appreciated, as the monk is my favorite class, and this potentially would change how I play them. DM Iron Fist.
Okay, so Iron Fist is the one that we know knows quite a bit about some of the of Bruce Lee and some of his philosophy,
Right.
and just that as well. So I can see why he'd like the monk. And I think we probably have a lot of listeners who would fall into that same camp.
Yeah.
So
monks are cool.
Let's find that line again. Where was it?
Player's Handbook. I don't know. He didn't say what page.
It's in the Player's Handbook.
Okay,
I know that.
Paladins, bonuses, Master. There's a lot of things in here. I don't actually see the thing about the saving throw. So if anybody has an idea where it might be, I don't know. I think the way we mentioned it last time was that the intent seemed to be that it was about hurled objects rather than melee attacks.
Hand to hand.
Exactly. Yeah. And in the absence of being able to find where this thing is in here, I'd still kind of stick with that. I think that the idea is that they're supposed to be able to dodge things that you throw at them, even if they're a fireball.
Even if they're a fireball.
Yeah. Yeah. Here we go. It's on page 30. It's about near the bottom of the page on the right, and it says monks make saving throws. Non-magical missiles which would normally hit can be dodged or knocked aside, and I suppose that's a saving throw.
Yeah, the saving throw against petrification for each such potential hit says right in the book.
Good. And then in other respects, if a monk makes his or her saving throw against an attack form, the monk will sustain no damage from the attack, even if it was a fireball, for instance. Actually, that isn't so confusing now that I read it again. If a monk, in other respects, if a monk makes his saving throw against an attack form, the monk will sustain no damage from the attack. So what they're trying to say here is that if you have something like fireball, where normally save would do, say, half damage. I'm not sure. I think it's what it is. Instead of just half damage, like some would get, the monk gets no damage.
Right.
So that's actually a totally separate thing from the first part. The first part is saying for non-magical missiles, arrows or stones or whatever, in addition to the normal armor class, the monk also gets a saving throw. And then for magical attacks, which would normally get a saving throw to reduce the damage, instead of just reducing, it completely eliminates the damage. That's all it is.
So if they could they could dodge a fireball. Mm-hmm. Could they potentially dodge magic missiles?
No,
the magic missile spell.
No, because there's no saving throw for magic missile.
Okay, so I see what you're saying. The description of the missile type magical attack, like a fireball, has to have some sort of saving throw associated with it.
I guess you could think of it this way. So if you look at the fireball, it does half damage on a save.
Right.
Meaning that the monk is able to actually dive completely out of the way of the fireball somehow. But the magic missile is more of like a heat-seeking missile or something. It always gets its target. It doesn't really matter what you do. So even the monk can't dodge that.
It's an auto hit no matter what.
Yeah. And, they're not that bad. We were playing last week, and one of my players who normally plays 3.5 was really excited to find out that his magic missiles were going to hit every time. And then when a couple of them hit and he realized they didn't really do that much damage,
yeah,
it wasn't such a – I mean, he's a first-level magic user, so oh well.
Yeah.
At least he hit. He was happy to have hit.
Oh, well. So if you'd like to write in, rfistaff@gmail.com. Go to the website. There's a contact form, rfipodcast.com. Or you can send in a voicemail like last did, directly to the email. Go to the site. There's a voice number there. Or the Google voicemail. Be prepared to talk as soon as the Google voicemail goes off, because it calls you right back. And I think that'll end Sage Advice, unless you guys have anything else to say.
I got nothing.
I had something and I totally forgot. So apparently I got nothing.
Okay.
We're going to be attacked by zombies.
Let's head into let's shamble into table manners.
Typical of all the evil creatures in the world, I like to find one table manners.
Now for table manners. So since last brought up the topic, let's go into that. Let's talk about setting the mood. So here we are with our Halloween episode, and hopefully a lot of our listeners will be playing some D&D this Halloween.
Yeah.
If you're going to do that, how do you go about making a properly spooky game where you can still see the dice?
You use glow-in-the-dark dice and candles.
Well, okay, so first of all, glow-in-the-dark dice, even before we go into anything else, we took glow-in-the-dark dice with us on our camping trip and discovered that they glow amazingly well for the first 30 seconds.
And after that,
yeah, so
not so much.
Unless you got some dice that have like little glow sticks in them, that's probably not the answer. But maybe a black light. So there's obviously, I think we hit on the first thing, your lighting. I mean, everybody can expect lighting to be part of setting the mood, right?
Yeah.
Sure, absolutely. You know, the obvious candles or.
Well, I mean, that's kind of what I was thinking.
Down.
How about black lights?
That would be really good, yeah.
That would be really cool. I could see that.
Yeah, especially because you do have to see the dice. I mean, if nothing else, maybe you could have like a little area where you're just where the dice are being rolled. That's your black lights.
Yeah.
Or if you're playing with minis, you know, the same thing.
In fact, that reminds me when you just mentioned the black lights. I did play in a game with black lights involved. It was at Origins. It was a Call of Cthulhu game.
Oh, okay,
well,
good.
Goes without saying. So it was run by a great group of folks called Rogue Cthulhu. They always run great games there, and they have their own section there, and it's all under black lights. So, and they do all their. And this is something you could probably use if you want to use a horror based D&D game. You know, do the black lights and maybe do some stuff with the I guess the day glow colors, because they come up really bright. Yeah, the fluorescent. Yeah, sure. They come up. Yeah, so I just remembered that. You know, you jogged my memory on that. So that might be something you could do. You know.
Yes.
Just general kind of ambient sounds that you can set up. I think a lot of it depends on how techie you are too.
Right.
You know, if you're somebody who's really a bit of an electrical engineer and really likes to get techie, you can pick up some Arduino boards. You know, those little basically like build your own printed circuit kind of setups. And you could have all kinds of triggers set up so that as the game's going, you could have a strobe light set to go off, or you could have different sounds that you had ready to trigger. You name it. If you're less technically inclined, you're not ready to start setting up all that sort of things, just have them around and maybe get some switches, just kind of like where you can reach them.
Oh, spooky. Oh.
Yeah. What about dry ice?
Yeah, that'd work for a little while.
Dry ice can be a little expensive, though, can't it?
Well, okay, so I've never bought dry ice. I mean, I always hear about it, but I don't even know where you go to get that stuff.
Fish market?
Yeah, I think
Supermarket?
So. You know.
And is it safe to pick up? Can you hold it in your hands?
No,
you got to wear gloves.
Yeah,
you get like a cold burn.
Yeah,
because it's frozen carbon dioxide, if I recall.
Yes,
but it's safe to breathe, right?
It's okay. Yeah, they use it a lot of times for movies too. So
yeah,
okay.
You can also buy those fog machines.
Yeah, that's what I was just thinking. But I can tell you from all the time that I spent, you know, either in a band or touring with bands, those things really get in your throat.
Yeah,
they make it hard to breathe.
Yeah.
They really
so the dry ice might be a way to go. That might be the thing. Just get one block of dry ice and just let it go.
Yep. So we got some dry ice. We got black lights and maybe some candles. Be careful with your candles as far as where you put them, obviously.
Yeah, we do. Got to be careful with the candles.
Yes.
My character just burned
What about
up.
sounds?
Oh, yeah.
Like flatulent sounds? Oh, sorry.
No.
That's one type of horror, but that's not the one
yes,
we're
it
looking
is.
for.
Especially if you got the candle too close.
Yeah.
I would say you could set up speakers in the rooms and have certain, you know, a tape recorder, or who uses a tape recorder anymore, but a CD player ready to go.
Obviously, you didn't look at my blog this week.
No, I didn't look at your blog this week. Sorry.
You have to see. I got a new piece of technology, and I did an unboxing for it. I managed to get from the mid '80s, a PhoneMate dual cassette answering machine, brand new, never opened in the box.
Cool.
And
what are you doing?
If you
call my home, I'm using it because I didn't have an answering machine at home.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm just saying tapes, man. It's all about cassettes are fine.
Yeah, can you still buy them?
It came with its own cassettes with a cool 80s geometric pattern on the cassette.
Oh,
I love it.
Yeah. So, anyways.
Anywho.
So if you've got a tape or you've got some type of a digital player or you've got a reel-to-reel or a gramophone that might have some sounds on it.
Right. There's some, as far as like ambiance music, there's these, I think everybody's heard of these guys, Midnight Syndicate.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
I guess they do some really good ambiance music for like what was it, World of Darkness or whatever.
Vampire the Masquerade, yep.
Yeah. And I've heard some of the stuff and it's very good. I think that would be perfect.
Good tip. That's the thing. We don't talk about LARPing on the show because this is not that kind of a show. But it's personally, I don't judge. If you're into it, you're into it. But this is a place where we could learn a couple of tips from the Vampire the Masquerade and LARPing types in terms of, just looking for things that they do to set the mood, not to actually do any of those things. But, we've talked before on the show about handouts to have during the show. Well, I think if you're going to be, first of all, if you're doing a spooky atmosphere for your D&D game on Halloween, you should probably be playing a spooky module. So hopefully you're already doing something like Tomb of Horrors or Ravenloft or something that you yourself have created with lots of undead. And so why not go ahead and create some things that might be handouts that would spook out your players a little bit too.
Yeah, true.
I remember hit the Halloween store. Go ahead and get yourself some bones.
Oh, heck yeah.
Get some slime.
Yeah. I know the great Joe DM, when we played over his house one time, he actually took the time out to write a bloody message on the wall.
Oh, God.
And then when it was time, he flashed the light on it. We didn't know it was there, and then that was part of our hook for the adventure. So it was kind of cool.
Yeah, that would totally...
Cool.
That freaks me out just thinking about it. The idea of having this dark wall, and then all of a sudden... a little thunderclap and the light goes on and you see the blood.
Yeah, it was really cool. I was like, wow, Joe, you really went out for this one.
Spooky. Oh, scared of myself. Oh.
No,
blah, blah, blah.
Nothing scared me when I was a little kid as bad as mirrors. Because when I was a little kid, I read the Amityville Horror. They printed it in the National Enquirer. They printed the story of the Amityville Horror. And I picked it up and I read that when I was like 6 or something. And they were talking about the faces in the mirror and the messages appearing. Oy, oy, oy.
And you know what's funny? Even stuff like that when we were kids, like the whole Bloody Mary thing.
Bloody Mary.
My kids have picked up on it now. It's still that whole legend about the Bloody Mary.
Mm-hmm. That's like
mirror,
Candyman, right?
Yeah. My kids, my oldest daughter kind of picked up on it like a year or two ago from her friends, and I'm still surprised kids still hear about that stuff.
It's all urban legends and stuff.
But that's still like good inspirational stuff. I think we're also talking about like things to inspire your game to be like you were saying, Jason, to be scary, horrific, or whatever you. You can look into some of these urban legends. I guess one that's been floating around lately is this one that called the what the heck is he called? The Thin Man or the I
have no idea what you're talking about.
Yeah, there's this one like internet urban legend kind of thing, something like called the Thin Man or the Skinny Man or something like that. I forget what it was.
And what does he do?
Slender Man is coming for
Slender Man. That's it. Slender Man. Thank you. Yes. I looked that up, and it was started just as some innocuous thing on a message board forums, and it just kind of snowballed into this whole urban legend about the Slender Man and how he comes and gets kids and takes them away from like playgrounds and it's kind of like that whole Candyman or the Bloody Mary kind of thing.
I'm looking at a really cool piece of artwork somebody did on dangerousminds.net of the Slender Man, and this is good. Yeah, this is great inspiration for creating
that's
adventure.
Creepy stuff.
When I was When I was a kid, my grandparents used to scare the heck out of me by saying the legend of the Indian woman used to come at night and would, if little kids didn't go to sleep like they were supposed to and they were told, would come into the bedroom if you were not asleep, would take you outside and hang you by your thumbs on the clothesline.
Ah!
And you'd be out there and no one would be able to hear you screaming all night long until the morning.
Wow, that's a good thing. That's a nice thing to do to a kid.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
They used to always,
oh my God.
They used to scare us when we were kids.
Oh my God, my grandmother would never do that. My grandmother loved me.
We were bad kids.
Sorry, I just can't wait to see the new Zach Galifianakis film. So,
I mean, I'm thinking of like other places they get inspiration. Like one of the shows I listen to, I think I talked about before, Coast to Coast AM, that comes on late at night. They always talking about ghosts and demons and everything like that. You can get some inspiration from that. How you can maybe, throw some sort of plot hook into a game and just kind of run with it. I mean, there's so much stuff out there.
Since you mentioned George Nuri,
yes.
What I have found to be one of the spookier things that you can have happen to you as a player is abductions.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I just got a shiver down my spine when you talked about it.
Yeah. I mean, whether you're the player who gets abducted or whether the players are walking along and suddenly one of them's missing, it's great. It's classic stuff.
Yeah, but you also have to remember where to draw the line with these things, too. Not to go too far that it's too disgusting. That it
I'm thinking just
people
abductions
too.
As in, they disappear and, where did they go? I'm not a fan of gross out scare.
Right.
I don't like
gross
that.
out stuff is totally different, and that's not scary. That's just, that's just turn your stomach gross.
Well, it's like this is the thing about horror films is that I like I like Jacob's Ladder type horror films.
Right.
But I think it's so cheap when a horror film, the way that they scare me is by making a loud noise or showing me something gross. I'm like, that's not frightening. That's just shocking, and anybody can do that.
I think the best type of horror, and I think even DMs can use this if you're running a game with some sort of horror element, is the best way to do it is you just open the door a peek. You only give the players a peek, You only explain just enough, or you just a glimpse. Leave the rest to the players' imagination, because their imagination will be good enough to get them scared.
Are you reading out of the Cthulhu book?
No, but that's a good lead in when we get there.
I think that's a direct line.
Maybe I'm wrong about this, but I've never seen anybody write a adventure based on Ichabod Crane. Am I wrong about that?
Like Legend of Sleepy Hollow?
No. Yeah, no one has.
Yeah, I don't think so either.
That would make such a great adventure.
Headless Horseman would be awesome.
Yeah,
as a bad guy to go up against. Oh my gosh, yeah.
I think I'd like to throw down the gauntlet to our listeners.
A
lot of times I've seen the people have been putting up some great modules over the years, putting things up on Dragon's Foot, publishing through Lulu and all of that, which is great. It's a lot of work to write a good adventure. I mean, we've probably all seen that, but it's not quite so much work to just write a good plot, not to go ahead to all the way of writing everything. So I think it would be cool if more people just wrote some storylines and hooks. Mm-hmm. And let's start a forum on that just for good storylines and hooks, because I'll bet a lot of people have some good stories in them. They just haven't taken the time to turn them into big, long adventures yet.
I'd like to see some stats for the Headless Horseman. That would be really cool. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Blah. Blah. Okay, so should we make this campaignish or just a one-shot thing?
I don't think I could handle a whole campaign of undead and horror. Some people, we'll talk about Cthulhu next. Some people absolutely could. But for me, it would wear me down.
Get old too fast.
I could think of maybe for a short period in a campaign that's something that you're have something ongoing, maybe for a few sessions, but for that prolonged, I don't think I could do it. I know there were some people that were like real fans of the Ravenloft fantasy setting. But to me, I just couldn't do it. I mean, if I want to play horror, I'm going to play Call of Cthulhu.
Yeah, and Ravenloft is a really good short adventure. I mean, if you go through the one, 2, or even 3 modules that were originally done, but I couldn't. I mean, the idea of creating an entire world around that just. I don't know. Maybe there's some fans of Ravenloft, and I'd like to hear from them. I mean, as a campaign setting, it was never a campaign setting for 1E, though, was it?
No, second edition.
No.
Just 2. Was it like second edition the first time they did that?
Second edition.
It was
okay,
later.
so close enough. You could definitely adapt that pretty easily for 1E. But I don't know anybody that ever played that as a campaign setting.
I have.
How was it?
Really?
Yeah, that was the only thing I ever bought from second edition was the Ravenloft campaign setting. And I loved it, actually. Another DM of mine, Brian, who might listen to the show, I'm not sure, but he ran Ravenloft for quite a while for using that box set for first edition. It was a lot of fun.
I mean, did it just get oppressive after a while, having all of that, gothic horror hanging over you all the time?
No, not really, because I was a Vampire the Masquerade player, so it didn't really bother me.
Oh, so you were looking for that kind of a setting.
Yeah, so it didn't bother me.
Okay.
Most people, I mean, the whole idea of all the undead attracted to the good clerics, and you're cut off from this, and he had wild magic going on in there, and we had a paladin in the group that was like an instant magnet, so.
Oh, sure, yeah.
And then the whole thing, the land tempting you to do evil things, so. It was fun.
Yeah.
No one plays it anymore, though. Sad.
Well, maybe we'll hear from somebody who does.
Yes, I want to hear another fellow fan of Ravenloft.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that was one I never really that never really turned my head to get, but I mean, that's cool if it works. If you got players that enjoy that sort of thing and want to take their whole D&D game completely into a gothic horror genre like that, or what I'm going to do in my new campaign is going to be, there's going to be definitely some elements of horror, but it's more of like on a, if you would think Robert E. Howard and his Conan stories and how they were...
Ron Howard? Oh, sorry.
Robert E. Howard.
I thought we were talking Happy Days there for a minute.
Yeah, no, he's not controlling my mind. But yeah, I mean, the new campaigns that I'm going to do is going to have some horror elements into it, but it's not gothic horror. It's more, I don't know how you would term it. I mean, I guess the best way is like Robert E. Howard's stories from the Hyborian Age, kind of like that in a way, Not
a lot of undead there.
No.
No, but there's some...
You don't have to. It's okay.
Yeah. I mean, there's different ways you could do horror. I mean, you could do horror with undead or more of a cosmic kind of horror. Like when you're talking about like the movie Alien, the original Alien movie. I mean, you're talking like more of a outer space cosmic horror there. I mean,
that's a really good point. We've just been talking about all of the kind of classic horror movie type of things. But what about the more Twilight Zone or Outer Limits type of horror?
Yeah,
that's the stuff I kind of like.
I thought you were going to say Twilight the movie. I was going to smack you.
No.
All right. I'm going to go on record right now and say that all you guys who come down and harsh on these teenage girls who like Twilight are so hypocritical.
What?
Well, my daughter reads it. And,
because, listen, I don't read it because it's not aimed at me. I'm not a teenage girl.
Right.
I'm not the target audience. But come on, how many teenage boys have got some obsession with whatever thing that is that they're into,
True.
and this is their thing, So if they want their vampires to be hunky and angst-ridden and
twinkle
just looking
in the
for a
light.
girl, and that's their thing, and I'm just glad that these girls are geeking out on something.
And you know what?
Everybody's
they're
upset
reading.
about it. And they're reading. And everybody who's upset about it, I guess they're just upset because it's a different type of geekery than their own. But, are they all supposed to be Trekkies? Let them have their fun. I'm totally for it.
Okay.
So
Soapbox.
Tell us how you really feel.
Yeah.
No,
I'm just saying. I'm just saying. As an ex-goth, I have plenty of goth friends who get very upset about that whole Twilight thing, as if somebody's like taking their vampires from them. Okay. They're not your vampires. They're fictional. Let them have fun.
But on the Twilight Zone thing,
but on the Twilight Zone,
or Outer Limits, that is another horror, and that's the one I kind of like.
Oh, come on,
the story with the twist. I mean,
how about the infamous one from the '80s, Tales from the Dark Side?
Oh yeah,
yeah. There was a few pretty good episodes of that show. There was some that were pretty good.
A few, it was a lot.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, it was kind of derivative, but they managed to get off and do their own thing as well. I mean, they definitely found their stride.
Mm-hmm.
I think there was one episode when they redid Outer Limits. I think it was in the 80s or 90s.
Oh yeah.
But there was one. It was a quick 5-minute segment. I think it was maybe 5-minute segment.
Mm-hmm.
Aliens come to Earth. They land. You see all their giant spherical ships. They're in the skies.
Mm-hmm.
They land at the UN, and they give planet Earth an ultimatum to do whatever they need to do to be a part of
some
the
galactic brotherhood or something. Okay,
yeah, or something like that. And I forget how long they give them, but
you sure this isn't like a Simpsons or a South Park episode you're thinking of here?
Because no.
This has been kind of done to death. I'm sure TV Tropes has an entire section devoted to this.
Because what happened was they all come back and said, yes, we made peace agreements, we got rid of nuclear weapons and everything. And the aliens go, no, you misunderstood. We're a warlike race. We made you to be warlike. So you created peace on your planet now? That's not what we wanted. We wanted you to fight it out amongst yourselves and see who was the best.
Oh.
So they had to destroy them.
Well, you got rid of your weapons. Thank you very much. Attack. There was a really good thing on Dan Carlin's show. He does a show called Hardcore History, which I know some of our listeners are fans of that, and anybody who's not already, I would recommend checking out this podcast, Hardcore History. And he talked about what has happened in history when one culture, a more technically advanced culture, especially a very warlike, technologically advanced culture, encounters another one. Think the Spanish showing up in the Caribbean, et cetera, et cetera. And just basically pointed out, don't be too eager to meet the extraterrestrials. They might be like us, in which case we're in a lot of trouble.
And you bring up a very good, because wasn't it just recently, like in the past month, that Stephen Hawking even said himself that very same point?
Yeah, it's a pretty valid point.
He even said, you know what? We might not want to meet them because we are under the assumption that they are a peaceful, a peace-loving race of extraterrestrials, and they want us to cohabitate with them. You know what? We could be wrong.
We could be in a lot of trouble, and they could be just like us.
Just watch V, right? Just watch V. That's all I'm saying.
Hey, yeah,
V is a good inspiration for a campaign.
Yeah.
It's been, I hate to say it, but decades since I read The Lord of the Rings. So I decided to go back and read it again. And I'm just getting back to it, and the Black Riders are just showing up, and it's reminding me of all those things, the peaceful little Shire and the world's infringing on it. That type of a thing works as a great hook for, if you're talking about a longer campaign, it's a great hook for any campaign. Your peaceful little society that's meeting an extraterrestrial or, alien, not literally, I mean just an outside culture. And it's got a great Twilight Zone kind of twist that you could do to it.
It could, that could definitely happen. Absolutely.
Let's say that your characters are in, they're in a nice, settled society. They've got everything figured out, and there's some drow or some Dwergar that have decided they're going to work their way in, and they're going to be very manipulative about it. And I think of that Twilight Zone where the aliens, in order to get the people to destroy themselves, all they did was turn off the electricity for the night. Do you remember that episode?
Yes.
I think so.
Yeah, so just those kind of things. You could set up some really good hooks with that. Definitely, I think watch some old Twilight Zones, and you've got a campaign right there. All right.
Well, those are some really good ways to get inspiration for any sort of D&D game where if you want to have elements of horror, because we could get it from anywhere. It doesn't have to be, from what we consider, ghosts and, vampires sort of horror. It could come from anywhere. You can look into science fiction. You can look into, just other things that even happened in real life that seem horrific. You can maybe adapt that. So,
absolutely, even modern times. I'm reading a really good book right now called Demon, which I think I can't remember the name of the author, but it's all set in modern times with computer crime and things going on. But you could easily take the technology, toss it out, and turn it into something else. So you're right. Good inspiration can come from anywhere. So we've got the. So to recap, we've got the settings. You can do all kinds of things with your everything from dry ice to the lighting. I love the idea of the writing on the wall showing up or just revealing things like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
We've got a lot of great inspirations to go from. You can go anywhere from gothic horror to Twilight Zone type of things. And everybody who's listening, let us know if you ran anything this Halloween, what you do, because we'd love to hear about it. And I think that's probably time for us to leave Table Manners.
Here we are into our, I guess, special horror Halloween segment, guys.
Yeah, I think we
special horror Halloween segment. I guess we could call it.
All right.
And for our special segment here, I'm going to talk about one of the authors that was an inspiration to Gary Gygax, who put him in the appendices of, the DM's Guide for AD&D First Edition, and also in the basic D&D book was H.P. Lovecraft. And he mentioned some of H.P. Lovecraft's stories in the appendices, but also, more than that, if some people aren't familiar who H.P. Lovecraft was, he lived back in the 20s and 30s. He was born, I think, 1890. He lived up to 1937. And he was probably at least nowadays, is seen as probably the most inspiring author of modern American horror fiction, I guess you might want to call it. So yeah, I think it's interesting to note that, Gygax saw that there were some things that he could take from Lovecraft and put in to D&D or AD&D, particularly what is now known as the Cthulhu mythos. And there's a bit of a story about how that got involved. If some of you, our listeners out there, know about like the first edition Deities and Demigods, the first print of it had the Cthulhu mythos in it,
right?
Of course,
and gave stats for Cthulhu and Hastur and Nyarlathotep and all the other nasties that are associated with what is known as the Cthulhu mythos. I guess there was some dispute with Chaosium as far as copyright, maybe possible copyright infringement, and they pulled it in the second printing. So
okay, was it Chaosium? I thought it was the Lovecraft estate.
It might have been the Lovecraft estate, but I thought it might have been Chaosium because
well, there was definitely a dispute.
Yeah, there was definitely a dispute, and it might have been pulled because of the Lovecraft estate. I don't know, because I'm pretty sure. See, he didn't have any heirs.
Well, it's interesting because during Lovecraft's time, even weren't a lot of people writing, people that he was friends with writing in his universe.
Yes. There's the Lovecraft circle of friends and associates, and some of those associates.
Well, Robert E. Howard was one of them.
Robert E. Howard, exactly. I was going to. Robert E. Howard was one of those in the Lovecraft circle. He corresponded with Lovecraft and wrote several stories that were in that universe, if you will. A few of them called some of the short stories, and these all appeared like in Weird Tales back in the 20s and 30s. The Children of the Night, The Thing on the Roof, The Haunter of the Ring, and Dig Me No Grave are a few of the tales that Robert E. Howard wrote that were that had to deal with the Cthulhu mythos. One in particular is very interesting, I believe is The Haunter of the Ring, is that one actually has a tie-in. There's this particular artifact, the Ring of Toth Amon. And if you know that from, who Toth Amon, or he was a sorcerer.
Let's assume I don't.
Okay. In the Conan stories that Howard wrote, one of the major protagonists is Toth Amon. And this ring he had, it was a magical ring, and it eventually appears thousands of years later in this story, The Haunter of the Ring. It was Toth Amon's ring. So there's a tie-in with the with this Lovecraftian story with Robert E. Howard's Conan. So there is a connection there with Robert E. Howard's stories there. But
well, that's why I thought maybe that's one of the reasons the TSR felt like it was okay to just go ahead and do these things without, because, when you look at all these different authors, and I'm looking back at the Deities and Demigods book right now, and so I can see a great list. It's really good. The Deities and Demigods goes ahead and lists a bunch of the authors: Clark Ashton Smith, Frank Belknap Long, Robert Black, August Derleth, Lynn Carter, Ramsey Campbell, Brian Lumley. Since all these people had written in that, maybe they just thought this is in the public domain.
Even Stephen King, yes. In fact, reading through Stephen King's autobiography, it was reading Lovecraft's work that actually inspired him to get into horror fiction. And the story goes that he was at, I believe, his either a grandmother or an aunt's house, and he was up in the attic. And during the 40s, during World War II, the U.S. military did a lot of publishing of books for the soldiers, and they sometimes produced small, I guess you would call them omnibus editions of short stories from Weird Tales or fantastic science fiction. And there was a collection of H.P. Lovecraft stories that were in paperback. And he saw this book. He read through it, and he read some of the stories, and after that he was hooked. And that gave him the inspiration later on when he would write horror fiction. He's written some stories that have been tied into the Cthulhu mythos. So, yeah, even Stephen King.
Wow. So we've got a note here from our producer that says it was Chaosium versus TSR. So we're right. It was in the public domain, but apparently Chaosium managed to somehow get a hold of the copyright for Cthulhu. So nonetheless, I mean, one good thing that it did is it gave everybody a collectible item to look for in TSR.
Yeah, and I have a copy.
Of course.
So, Nick, why don't you give us a little story of the Cthulhu mythos that maybe someone out there has no clue we're talking about.
Okay.
Actually, I have no clue what we're talking about here because I've never been a Lovecraft reader. I feel like I'm sort of surrounded by the atmosphere of it because of everybody who else is into it. So you can give me some education here.
Sure.
Educate Jason.
Very well then.
Drop science.
Sit down, have a seat. I will tell you.
Okay.
I don't consider myself like an expert, but I think I know enough of it that I think I could explain it well enough. But I think you have to know a little bit about Lovecraft and what his view of the world or the universe as a whole world he saw the universe as completely uncaring and unknowing of humanity.
Right.
Giving into the fact that also he was an atheist, and I think that kind of played into creating this world, this universe, where that there are these horrors from beyond space and time that are somehow interacting with humanity to what we call magic or spells, but is actually might be like some higher form of technology.
Mm-hmm.
So there are various types of what they were called gods. Either they're sometimes called the Great Old Ones, and the Great Old Ones are Cthulhu. There's Hastur, Ithaquah, a few others, but and they have worshipers, and there's other monsters that are associated with this mythos too, like the deep ones, which are like fishmen.
All right, so let me throw some questions at you.
Sure.
One thing I always hear around the Cthulhu thing, and I love how much I'm exposing my lack of geek knowledge here at this point, because as I think about it, I mean, sometimes it feels like every other, whether it's a comic, a web comic, or even Squishables, the guys who make those who make the round squishy plush animals, they even have a Cthulhu squishable now. Anyway, so I'm going to ask you questions about it. One of the things I always hear about is that the reason that the worshippers or the cultists are worshiping these elder gods or old ones or whatever is so they can be eaten first. Am I getting that right?
Maybe.
As in
it all depends, because
you're gonna mess up everything. Get me first, okay?
Because the worshippers are technically insane, so
I thought it was
they can believe whatever they want to believe.
I thought it was because these old ones were going to come and make things horrible for everybody eventually. Right. So they just figured, well, it's going to happen to everyone. It's kind of like when I was a little kid, we lived near Sac Air Force Base in Omaha, and I was really glad that was the place that the nuclear bombs were going to hit first, because I was like, yeah, just get us first. you know, that kind of a thing. Is that part of the whole thing?
Yeah, it could be. It also depends on maybe the cult. Maybe some of them believe that if they're going to worship these things, they're going to be spared and become the new masters of the world along with the great old ones. That could be another
a consistency through all the different Cthulhu stories. Could you actually have a canonical kind of mythos to it?
I think Lovecraft, from what I've read and what I understand, he kind of left it loose. He actually encouraged people in his circle to write stories about the Cthulhu mythos and add their own twist to it. Like maybe, for example, the famous tome that he always uses, or at least in many of his stories, is the Necronomicon, which, by the way, everybody, never existed. Okay.
Hey, Bruce Campbell begs to differ with you, pal.
Well, I'm sure he does, and he's got the boomstick. So,
yeah.
But, I think it was Robert E. Howard's. He added something else to the canon. Another old tome. I forget the name of it, but De Verme's Mysteries, I think it's called. Mm-hmm. And some people add their own little twist to it in their own stories. So, and they're constantly trying to outdo each other. So I can't remember. There was one story where Clark Ashton Smith was actually a character in H.P. Lovecraft's story, and he renamed Clark Ashton Smith Clackdishton as like an old. It was like an anagram of his name, Clackdishton, which was, he made him into like an old wizard from like Atlantis or Hyperborea or something like that. So,
I'm starting to get a little bit jaded with the number of authors who just grab anagrams for things.
Yeah.
I have such a hard time naming characters in my adventures or characters in the stories that I write. Right. And I maybe I should just do what they do and just anagram everything.
Yeah.
I think the best way to start with anybody who doesn't really, know enough about Lovecraft's works and the Cthulhu mythos is really,
Pick up
and
the
I
book.
think some of the stories are in the public domain now.
Yes, they are.
Or you can buy some cheap paperbacks. And
You can always pick them up on like the free ebook downloads.
Right. I have a list of like 10 stories that I have for anybody. They're really interested in his works and maybe get some inspiration for their game. I'll just run down them really quick. I mean, top of the list right now is Call of Cthulhu.
Mm-hmm.
That's the quintessential story.
That's maybe the only one I've read.
Yeah.
And that's a good start. Another one, and this is and this one was, I think, listed the appendix of the basic D&D book, the Moldvay version. The Doom That Came the Sarnath is one. That's a good one. Herbert West Reanimator. It's a good story, very interesting, and that was done as a movie. It has its own cult following now. Back in the 80s, it was done. The Lurking Fear is another good one. The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadith.
Wait, was it called The Lurking Fear?
There's another one called The Lurking Fear.
Okay, so the Infocom game, The Lurking Horror, might have been based off of that?
Possibly.
Interesting. Okay.
So we have that, The Dream Quest of Unknown Kadith. The Case of Charles Dexter Ward is another one. The Color Out of Space, it's a pretty good one. I think the last three are my favorites, along with Call of Cthulhu. The Dunwich Horror, very good one. The Shadow over Innsmouth, very good story. And At the Mountains of Madness, which is actually a novella.
I read the Mountains of Madness. I couldn't get into that one.
That one could be a little dry at first.
Yeah, it really slow start on that one.
Yeah. But an interesting thing about that one, it's being made into a movie and Del Toro is directing.
So
Very cool.
So they're going to have an hour and a half of him saying, this time at 3:02, blah, blah, I rounded the mountains.
I don't think that'll happen.
Because it was driving me up the wall reading that.
Because he gets into the long history of like Antarctica.
Yeah.
Because you also got to think of at the time in the late 20s, that was the unknown. Antarctica was the unknown.
True.
But when we're talking about all these other authors and Lovecraft in particular, the idea is not just regular, your run-of-the-mill spooky ghost horror. This is cosmic horror. This is horror from beyond the stars. This is horror that has come down from the depths of space and time, is going to suck your brains out your nose. And that's if you're lucky.
Okay.
So it's a much grander kind of thing. It's a larger scope, if you will, as far as the type of horror. At least that's how I saw it. And I always thought that was much more scary than just like a ghost story.
Boom.
Absolutely. Coming down from the depths of space, you bet I'm more scared.
Or beyond time, and so there's some really good stuff out there. I mean, if you want to learn more, get out there on Wikipedia to learn more about Lovecraft, or go on to Chaosium's website. I mean, they got some good stuff. Another place I like to go to, I think I mentioned to them a long time ago, was a group from yogsawtoth.com.
Yes, you did, yeah.
And they do a podcast. It's like ours, but they do it all Call of Cthulhu gaming. And yogsawtoth.com is...
Isn't that don't they just do live play the whole time?
They sometimes do. They record their play sessions.
Yeah, because I've listened to those, and they're really entertaining. Those guys they're more like an improv group than gamers.
Yeah, and they're all out of England, and they do a fantastic job with their podcast. They do I think once a month, every few months. I've been listening to it for quite some time, and they do a really good job. So, but as far as adding, so what if you have all this stuff? It's like, I really want to add the Cthulhu mythos to my game. How do I do that? Well, you can do one of two things. or like add elements of it.
You can play Call
like
of Cthulhu.
Like adding not just Cthulhu and the other great old ones, but also some of the monsters like the deep ones, which are like the fish guys, which are like it's what the Kuo-toa are.
The what?
But
yeah, there's a lot of monsters that you can see the Lovecraft in them.
Oh yeah, like the Mind Flayer one we talked about last time.
Yeah, of course.
Obviously. But you can even get that with just like some of the stuff out on the Monster Manual, like you were saying, Jason, like the Mind Flayer. I think puddings are really good as far as like Cthulhu mythos types. Anything that's slimy or
pudding,
gelatinous, like the gibbering mouther. Remember that one?
Oh yeah,
the gibbering mouther. What's another really good one? Gosh, I'm trying to think of it. The aboleth. It's out of Monster Manual too. It's like that big fish thing.
Right.
I think
it's
is the aboleth one of the psionic monsters?
I think it is psionic, yes.
You know what? That's right, because a couple of people had written in after our show with psionics, because when we did the creature feature, I mentioned that there was a pool, and a couple of people had guessed right away that it was going to be an aboleth in the pool.
Yeah.
And I guess I just went for the obvious, the Mind Flayer, and our listeners actually would have had a better idea than us, or me anyways.
Yeah. But there's like so many, any monsters that in the Monster Manual, like the Otyugh, there's one that's kind of like Cthulhu mythos, kind of like, because it's, it lives in trash and what have you. And it's just, I mean, there are some monsters already built into the game that are obviously inspired. But if you go beyond that, if you want to include actual creatures like the Shoggoth, you could, one, try to get an original edition of the deities and demigods, but you're probably going to fork at least $45 to $50 for a copy, if not more.
Yeah, but I mean, hey, you'll spend $45 to $50 on a new Chaosium book. So,
true.
Or I found the website. A guy actually transcribed the Cthulhu mythos from the AD&D demics and demigods.
Uh-huh.
And it's out there, and and the website is still up.
Well, it's gray area, but what the heck?
Maybe
it's been up for years, and
we're about to take it down.
Well, as far as I know, it's been out there, but I'm not going to say it.
Tell you what, it's a good site. Let's let people find it on their own. I don't want to.
Google it and find it on your own. We don't want to touch gray areas. We want to
write to Nick at rfipodcast. It's DM Nick at rfipodcast.com. Wait, actually,
so
is it Nick at? No, it's just Nick at rfipodcast.
No, it's DM Nick.
Oh, we got that working? Okay.
Yeah, we did.
DM Nick at rfipodcast.com and ask him for the secret password.
But there's a website out there. You have to find it on your own.
The password is Cthulhu.
So you could do it. I mean,
so Nick,
it's not that hard.
You're an avid player of Call of Cthulhu RPG, right?
Yeah, I really do enjoy it, yes.
So which version of the game would you recommend players out there to go pick up, and start reading to play if they wanted to?
Gosh,
because
any edition, honestly. I mean, even the current edition is good, because one of the things I like about the game is the basic role-playing system, the BRP system that Chaosium uses. Mm-hmm. And I think Call of Cthulhu is in its 6th edition.
Yes.
You could still take 1st or 2nd edition rule adventures and scenarios, plug them right into the current edition, no problem. The basic game mechanics all the same. There's just little tweaks here and there. If it works, why fix it, right?
Right.
So one of the things I did steal from there, and I'm thinking of using it in my campaign, is sanity and insanity rules.
Right. You were talking about that last time.
Yeah. And this is something, and I can kind of post something out there for that, maybe with our show notes for everybody, is how you can maybe play, if you want to use sanity or insanity in your D&D game or AD&D game, is you have a stat called sanity, obviously, and it's created by taking your intelligence, adding it to your wisdom, dividing it by 2, and then multiplying it by 5. And that's your sanity points, your sanity score.
So one more time with that formula.
So
it's intelligence.
You're averaging it out and multiplying it by 5.
Okay. Say, for example, you had a character with 12 intelligence and 16 wisdom.
Okay.
You add those two.
You couldn't make it easy math, could you?
That's 28 divided by 2.
Really? 12 plus 15 is 28?
16.
Okay, sure. Let's call it 16.
Yeah, 12 and 16, that's 28, right?
Yeah, that's
now it is.
Now it is.
I'm reading it off the paper here.
Go on.
But, so that would be 28, right? Divided by 2, that's...
Oh my God, you just said you got your calculator out, didn't you?
I heard the calculator, Nick.
I heard it. You just used a calculator to divide 28 by 2. That's okay. Yes, as you know, that's 30.
Divided by 2.
14.
Okay.
And then you multiply it by 5.
Oh no, it's the math podcast. You couldn't have just said if you had a 10 and a 10 and then you got a 50, you had to have a 14 times 5, which
fine. We'll say 10 intelligence and 10 wisdom.
So you got a 70 sanity. Okay, you got a 70
and you'd have a 70 sanity.
It?
So you have 70 sanity points.
Okay. Yes.
If you haven't gone insane already from what the math that we've been trying to do.
Yes.
Okay. Everybody out there's going, oh my God, no!
That's DM Nick at rfipodcast.com.
So you can use this stat and say one of the things that you can use it for is when you're casting spells, you may lose sanity when you cast spells. For each level of a spell, you lose sanity for it. Because you are tapping in the energies beyond your ken. And such energies and knowledge extract a price, and that price is sanity.
You could definitely do that if you wanted to have a very different world of high-level magic users.
I
like it.
And I'm thinking of doing it where sanity points are doubled when you cast summonings, for, like if you're doing a gate spell.
Sure.
Or when you're doing binding spells like Spirit Rack or Exorcism, the amount of sanity lost is doubled. And also maybe another way you can use it, like for clerics, turning or controlling undead costs 1 point of sanity per undead creature successfully turned or controlled.
I would not do that. But, well,
maybe. I don't know.
I would not do that because I get your... Okay, if you wanted to play in a world that had, insanity coming from the magic, from opening up that gate to another plane... That makes sense for the magic user, and maybe even for the evil cleric who is controlling undead.
Right.
But for the good cleric who's turning them, that good cleric is turning them with the, by showing the holy symbol and all the powers of good. So probably just for the evil ones. Right. But then again, that's your campaign. I don't think I would do the sanity in mind because
I'm just throwing out
close
ideas
enough
there.
to the edge of sanity as it is.
And I'm just throwing out ideas there. One of the things that they have also in the Call of Cthulhu game, which you can maybe use for AD&D, is you lose sanity. You could possibly lose sanity for viewing certain types of creatures when you see them. Like the first time you see an Otia, you might lose. Yeah, you might lose sanity for seeing it. Because it's such
I saw a flump. It made no sense. My mind is boggled.
Well, obviously, you're going to use your GM's discretion here. So basically what you would do is you roll percentile dice, and if you make that score or lower, you saved and you don't lose any sanity. But if you roll higher than that score, you lose a certain amount of sanity points. Whatever the GM... There's just some ideas out there.
Very cool.
So I might throw some of those out there on our website. So some of those things. And you can maybe gain sanity back during certain deeds and everything. But you get into 0 sanity, you turn insane. So So that might be a cool thing.
World of possibilities.
Whole new world of possibilities there for your characters. So yes, the sanity stat possibly for AD&D. So, but that's kind of a Lovecraft in a nutshell, if you will, in the Cthulhu mythos. So there's a lot of stuff out there. You just have to look. Some of it is in the public domain, and there's cheap paper, inexpensive paperbacks of the stuff. There's plenty of websites. So, and it's like my next favorite game. So I'm hoping to take some of those elements in my next campaign. So we'll see how it works. So
yeah, put a recorder down so we can hear this campaign. Put a recorder down. We want to hear it.
Yeah, especially if you got anybody out there in RFI podcast land who's used, Cthulhu mythos in their game, or have some ideas, then maybe use it. Drop us a line, or drop me a line at dmnick@rfpodcast.com, rfipodcast.com, and
or just email rfistaff@gmail.com.
Or you could do that too.
Yeah, Nick, you should definitely get some players and start recording some games. I think you need to get an actual play podcast on the air.
Well, you know what? I'm thinking about it.
Excellent.
I might
yes, I hear the mine are up.
No, they're not.
Well, they'll be up by the time this goes live because our wonderful producer will have put them up.
Yes.
I'm blaming him for everything.
Oh, all right.
All right, so
and that is RFI.
On that high note,
RFIactualplay.tk is the actual site.
So let's.
Did NME just do a goth special? I think the NME just released a special goth issue. This is perfect for Halloween.
Sweet. So anybody out there listening, let us know. Get on the forums. See what you like, or if you don't like it, let us know. And I think they'll wrap this up. Our special segment.
We have a whole forum section for other types of games. So let's get one started.
So let's. I guess we'll go on to the Dragon's Horde.
On into the Dragon's Horde, where we have a listener-submitted bit of Halloween fun coming from our own Todd Hughes. I don't know, maybe listener is almost staff, right? So he is actually. If we're staff, if we're staff, he's staff.
Oh, he's staff.
Yeah.
He's staff.
He's staff.
Okay, so, Todd, it's official.
Yes, Todd has submitted Hismana's Candy Bag of Chaos.
Hismana's Candy Bag of Chaos. Love it.
And I'll just read this because he's got a great description.
Yeah.
First of all, the experience point value 2,000, so a little bit higher level characters or mid-level characters here. It's worth 4,000 gold pieces. This appears at first glance to be nothing more than a small empty black velvet bag the size of a coin purse. However, when a character reaches into the bag, they will pull forth a piece of multicolored taffy. The effect of the taffy pulled forth should be rolled at random, and the character should not know what effect it will have until ingested.
Yikes.
Any item placed in the bag will disappear into an extra-dimensional space and cannot be retrieved.
Ooh.
And it's too small to put your enemies in, so don't try. A piece of candy may only be pulled from Hismana's Candy Bag of Chaos once per day.
Per person?
And the candy... Sorry?
I wonder if that's per person.
Let's see. Let's read through and see what we think. Piece of candy may only be pulled from Hismana's Candy Bag of Chaos once per day. And the candy must be eaten within one turn, or it loses all magical qualities, becoming normal taffy. So, right there, good thing about this is it could just be a taffy bag if you're hungry. No.
Okay, worst case.
All right. So we've got a D20 roll and relatively even dispersal here. There's a few that are a little bit easier to get, like the first one, fire breathing.
Ooh.
water breathing, speak with plants, enlarge or reduce, levitate, stink breath, and poison. All right, so let's run down through what's in here. The fire breathing candy. After this piece of candy is eaten, whenever the character opens his or her mouth, a jet of flame will shoot forth. This includes trying to do something as simple as speaking.
Oh my God.
This jet of flame is 2 feet in width and 3 feet in length and causes 5 points of damage to anyone struck. The effect lasts for 1 turn.
Okay.
Fun.
Interesting.
Water breathing. After this piece of candy is eaten, the character will be able to breathe underwater in the same way as the magic user spell of the same name. This effect lasts for 2 turns.
Cool.
Okay, so we got cinnamon taffy and saltwater taffy. Got it.
They all look the same.
Aw.
You won't know. Speak with plants. After this piece of candy is eaten, the character will be able to converse with plants in the same way as the cleric spell of the same name. This effect lasts for 5 rounds.
Yay.
Right. Water, good. Club.
Enlarge or reduce.
If this was a movie, The Happening, that could have used that pill. Or
Yeah, that's true.
Go ahead, Jason.
After the enlarge or reduce piece is eaten, the character will increase in size by 100%. This is the same as the magic user spell of the same name. There is a 25% chance that instead of increasing in size, that the character will reduce in size by 50%. This effect will last for 1 turn. You should probably hope for reduce, because if I remember right, the enlarge spell only enlarges the creature and not anything you're wearing, so you could take some damage there.
Well, that reminds me, we just had an actual play podcast for Book of Sorrows, and our dwarven character found a bracelet that enlarged him to 6'7". Mm-hmm. So he was a dwarf running around that was like 6'7", but he realized how cool it was. He was like, "Oh, this is awesome!" But he realized that the only thing that enlarged with him were his clothes for, G rating purposes. Mm-hmm. And his axe was now considered like a tomahawk in his hands, pretty much, because he had a dwarven axe. Yeah, and his crossbow was just kind of like, like a twig or something in his hand. So there was good and bad with it.
It makes me think of Captain Carrot from the Discworld. He's the dwarf who's he was actually a man raised by dwarf parents, but as far as he's concerned, he's a dwarf. So let's see. Oh, we have 3 more pieces of candy in the bag. Levitate.
Yeah.
Yes. After this piece of candy is eaten, the character will begin to rise from the ground. A weight of up to 500 pounds will levitate at a rate of 10 feet per round. Character affected cannot control whether or not he rises.
Oh, jeez.
Oh, great.
And for some strange reason, this effect lasts for 6 rounds. I don't know why 6, but 6 rounds.
Because when it stops, you'll be 60 feet up at that 6d10 damage.
Oh.
When you fall.
I think you probably got it, yeah.
Because I'm an evil DM.
Yes. Stink breath. After this piece of candy is eaten, it causes the character to have horribly foul breath that affects everyone but the character that ate the candy. Whenever the character's mouth is opened, a noxious yellow cloud of gas escapes, covering a 10-foot cube area and affecting all living creatures other than the eater within it, as if it were the magic user spell Stinking Cloud. This effect lasts for 1 turn.
That could be kind of useful. Yeah.
I know some people at the office like that.
Just waiting for that. And then the last one, poison. This piece of candy is a potent poison. When consumed, the character eating must make a saving throw versus poison or die.
Obviously inspired by Gary Gygax there. Save or die.
Save or die. Hey. There's a good podcast called that I've heard of.
Yeah, it's a really cool podcast.
Yes, there is.
I want to look that up. SaveOrDie.info.
Nice plug.
All right, so what are we going to do with this thing? Where are you going to put it in your game?
I'm thinking this is almost like the edible version of the bag of tricks, In a way.
My only major concern with this is that he doesn't say anything about charges. He doesn't say if you can take it and let someone else pull something out of it.
Well, charges. All right, I think the DM's discretion here, I'd give it charges.
Yeah, I definitely would.
Just like any magical item.
And
I don't know. I kind of see this like the bag of tricks or the, I see it like that. You can, the bag of tricks, you can pull something out, I think, once a day. It's kind of like that.
Yeah, but some people see the once a day as per person, so that's why I'm trying to figure, is that DM discretion there too?
Well, definitely, since he hasn't put it. I'm actually going to look up the bag of tricks and see how it works on that, because that's a good comparison.
Or maybe it's... also, I was thinking Wand of Wonder. It's almost like that, too, doesn't it?
A little bit.
Maybe.
So the bag of tricks, as you say, that one doesn't have charges. It just works and works and works.
Mm-hmm.
Individual reaches inside, one creature at a time. The bag of tricks is up to 10 creatures maximum can be drawn from the bag each week. So it's based on the bag rather than the player, and that kind of makes more sense. So since he didn't mention, I mean, obviously Todd can let us know what he intended. I would prefer to interpret it as just once per day, period.
Yeah, for the possessor of the candy bag.
Yeah.
For whoever, if somebody else reaches in and takes the candy, well, that was your once per day.
Okay.
That's how I'd probably do it, but I don't know what Todd intended.
All right, now I'm looking at this also saying this is definitely not a good item to have.
No, it feels like more of a curse.
Yeah, more of a curse item.
Because what are the positive things that could happen? Well, fire breathing, potentially positive if you're expecting it and you're ready to make use of it. And you're lucky enough for that to be the one you get.
Water breathing might be helpful.
Almost no negativity to water breathing or speak with plants. Those are just good things to get.
Unless you want boring conversation with plants.
Yeah, if it's a boring plant, if it's a plant that doesn't have a lot to say, then yeah. But if you get a real
to say to you, I need poo and water. Feed me.
The plant's going to want poo and water, Nick. Nice. At least you kept it PG.
I'm sorry, I'm just thinking about what Vince said about knowing somebody at the office who's like the stink breath.
Yeah.
All right, so stink breath, probably a good thing to get, because...
the stinking cloud spell thing, yeah.
It's useful.
Yeah.
Levitate and enlarge, not so good.
No.
Because you don't know they're going to happen, so how can it possibly be a good thing for you?
All right, and with the levitate, you have no idea how long it's going to last.
Right, and poison, of course.
Well, save or die.
Poison.
Good podcast.
So maybe, maybe if you've got one of these, is there any way that this could be an item of last resort for you? Could you be in a situation where you just say, I'm out of options. Let's see what I get from the taffy.
You know what? This would be kind of thing maybe you want to trick an enemy with, too.
Well, it's great if the enemy ends up getting the levitate or the poison. Not so great if they get the fire breathing.
This could be like your cyanide pill type deal.
Cyanide taffy.
Yeah.
The cyanide taffy.
Well, you're dying. Might as well, what the hell, pull it out.
Yeah, see what it is.
That's taffy, that is, by the way.
Life is like his mana's candy bag of chaos. You never know what you're going to get.
Wow.
All right, so...
would you put this in your campaign? Jason?
Yes, because I like watching my players deal with chaos.
I would too, yeah. For the same reason. And it seems innocuous at first, some of these effects, but others can be potentially dangerous. So...
Yeah,
I like magic items like this, like the Wand of Wonder, the Bag of Tricks. So,
good question here. How would you guys handle the once per day pulling out of the bag? How would you role play that, Nick?
I see that as once per day for the possessor of the candy bag.
Right, but how would you role play the whole issue?
How would I role play that? I guess it depends on. Give me some context.
Well, I guess the question is, so the player puts their hand in, they get the taffy, and then they put their hand in again. Is it empty now?
Or is it just regular taffy?
It's empty. No, there's no more taffy in it. They pulled their one, that's it.
Okay, so you've pulled your taffy, you're done. Okay.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
All right. I do like the getting rid of things. It's a really, it's really good if you're in. Here's a use for this item. You're in a dungeon. You don't want to leave any tracks. Where are you going to throw out your garbage? In the bag. So that's useful.
That's true.
All right. So this is a really good. It's a good magic item, definitely. Thank you, Todd.
Cool. So we'll put it in. We'll try it out and see what happens. We'll post it up on the show notes, so people could try using it in their campaigns and tell us what they think.
Excellent.
rfistaff@gmail.com, or go right to our forums. Speaking of forums, you can find our forums on Dragon's Foot in the sub-forum of First Edition now.
Oh, yeah. I wanted to thank Dragon's Foot for doing that, because it was really cool of them to create RFI podcast forums on Dragon's Foot. And they did get a little bit lost when they were up in the sort of the top level of things. So now they're easier to find. So thank you, guys at Dragon's Foot.
Yes, thank you, Dragon's Foot.
Yes, especially thank you, Steve. He was the one that did it for us.
Steve. That's who we want to thank.
Steve.
And then we'll head over to Creature Feature.
Creature Theater.
So for the creature feature tonight, we have two things we're going to talk about. One we planned, the other one is actually by listener request. Many listener requests. The first is going to be the vampire, and the second one is going to be the witch class. Well, the witch NPC class, right, Jason?
Witch class?
So no, don't even start that.
Which class?
Who's on first edition?
Third base.
We are.
Yeah, so we'll do it a little bit different. We'll do a monster and an NPC. So let's start with our monster.
We have the vampire, the traditional vampire. Basically, they were going off the traditional Bela Lugosi vampire history going on here. If you look, blah. That's right. Speaking of which, I was watching Scooby-Doo today. Don't ask me why. And
why?
Hey, Scoob.
Yeah. And they were going after something real. Then they went in this bar, and there was like ghosts and skeletons and vampires, and the vampires were talking, and all they were doing was going blah, 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 blah.
Oh, that was actually what they were saying?
Yeah, they were actually just going, that was their conversation with each other. It was blah, 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 blah. And the ghosts were going boo, 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 boo.
That's how it works.
God.
So, would you let a player play a vampire in your campaign?
No.
No. This is probably one of the baddest people in the game, I think, a vampire, other than a demon, probably, or a devil.
Or a lich.
Yeah. I mean, the only thing that really stops them is holy water, sunlight, and maybe, if you want to go with a crucifix, they'll hold them at bay.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Well, in an AD&D world, I'd go with a holy symbol.
Sorry, I meant to say holy symbol.
But actually, no, that's not going to work, because now you're just turning them.
Yeah.
Now you're just a cleric that's turning. So I'd leave that out.
Or the obligatory stake through the heart, cut off the head.
Mm-hmm.
So the vampire can drain life energy from lanes 2 life energy levels from a victim when they hit with a bite, a successful bite. So
is it a bite only?
No, actually, I usually go with a bite.
Okay.
But the book actually says, yeah, you're correcting me, just a successful hit.
Okay, well, no, and I'm actually not that familiar with the book's vampire, because I've always kind of been a fan of vampire fiction, so being restricted to the Bram Stoker type, I didn't really dig it as much. But I went back and I found a really good article from Leomund's Tiny Hut from, I think it was Dragon number 30. Mm-hmm. And I don't know if this was written before the Monster Manual came out. It's October 1979. That would be after, wouldn't it be?
I think so. I don't have the book in front of me.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, that was after. DM's
Monster Manual was first. Monster Manual was the first
77.
book.
Yeah.
Okay, so maybe the things that are in here might even be update on it, but it does specifically point out. He specifically points out that even though this is based on the Bram Stoker vampire, it's not exactly that vampire, so it doesn't have to bite to drain levels.
I've always gone with the whole traditional vampire has to bite to drain the levels.
Sure, why not?
That makes more sense than a hit. I mean, a hit is kind of cheap.
Well, what he's saying in here specifically is that it's just a power of the vampire. He says specifically, remember, this is not the Bram Stoker vampire. This is the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons vampire. The AD&D vampire drains levels due to negative plane coexistence and does not have to bite the victim. So it's a whole question of, how much do you want to get into the mythos and the mechanics of the AD&D world, and how much do you want to really make it that classic movie vampire of the early 20th century?
Okay, so going back, they regenerate hit points, they are immune to sleep, charm, and hold spells don't affect them at all. Poisons or paralyzation do not work on them. They take 1/2 damage from spell based on cold or electricity. They go on further to having shape change to a bat whenever they're desired. They have the gaseous form, which is pretty much the traditional history lore of vampires as well. I remember seeing anything here real quick about werewolves. Wolves. Do you remember seeing anything on that?
Actually, yeah, they can. In wilderness, they can summon 10 to 100 rats or bats. In wilderness surroundings, typically 3 to 18 wolves.
Mm-hmm.
And the creatures will come in 2 to 12 melee rounds.
And they have the infamous vampire Bela Lugosi gaze. The whole camera close up and gum. Yes. He raises his right hand and does the whole arch with the finger. The whole thing that made Bela Lugosi famous.
You are in my power. Blah.
Renfield,
you stupid lucky boy. How you want to make it into a sleeping bag?
Okay. Thank you, Nick. So let's talk about slaying vampires. Since we're going to slay Nick now. So first we're going to stake them, cut off their head, and we're going to put some holy wafers into their mouth. And Jason, you were laughing about that before.
It just sounds ridiculous.
I know.
Well, that's part of the vampire folklore.
I'd leave that out one. I'd leave that one out too, because I try to keep kind of quote unquote real world religions out of my AD&D. I know like the Norse religion is real world, but that sort of stuff gets a little bit, I just leave it out. I think holy wafers is a little bit silly for me for an AD&D game.
Why wouldn't the religions inside the game have holy wafers? I mean,
they might, but I don't know. I mean, if you're carrying cookies for the vampire,
you're prepping. All right, so you can go with that, or you can go with just doing cut off the head, stake to the heart.
Mm-hmm. Now, what about burning the body?
It depends on what mythos you're looking at. If you're doing traditional vampirism, the body once staked or head cut off, they instantly turn to dust.
Mm-hmm.
Or if you're doing the Josh Whedon verse, instant stakes turned them into like poof of air into dust.
Okay, help me there, because I'm not a Joss Whedon follower.
Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Those vampires, when all you had to do was stake them or cut off the head, and they just instantly went poof and they were gone. So,
Well, the whole thing, I think, what we're kind of talking about here is the whole vampire myth. It depends on which geographic region and society that you're talking about, because vampires maybe in Eastern Europe might be a little bit like where we get some of our common knowledge of, might be different than, say, like vampires that were in the Far East.
The ones that hop like zombies?
Yeah. Well, I even think in the original Monster Manual they had something about that. That's vampires of the Eastern world are invisible.
The Kappa.
Yeah.
So, I mean, here's one way you could go with it.
There's also the Bram Stoker mythos when you have to stake them to hold them in place.
Mm-hmm.
Stuff their mouth with garlic, and then cut off the head. And then you have to. Then you have to bury it.
Don't forget the holy water too.
There's I don't remember where I was reading this, but somebody was writing about like, how do we know if it's a vampire, so we know whether to use these methods? And the guy was like, look, cutting off their head or driving a stake through the heart is going to kill anybody.
Yeah,
so it doesn't just have to be the vampire.
Well, there's the ways you can tell, like the garlic repulsion. They don't reflect in mirrors, and
Yeah,
I think that's one.
You definitely can run the vampires however you want. I have never brought vampires into my game, and if I did, I think I would prefer to create a little bit more primal vampire. You know, this is a creature who feeds off of the blood of other creatures. I prefer I prefer the Nosferatu type.
So do I.
They're ugly. They're hideous. You do not want them around.
Yeah, the I think it's Brian Lumley, his Necroscope series.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of his vampires are like that.
Well, even look, the Anne Rice. At this point, it's a little bit cliche but when Anne Rice's books were first coming out, I really did like them a lot.
Yeah.
And I liked the fact that you had these older vampires, these really, really ancient ones that were very different from the sort of suave ones that could blend into society. The really ancient ones were just these horrors that even the other vampires didn't want to be around.
Yeah, because they were like, they almost became, feral, I guess you would call it?
Yeah, exactly. They had just lost any connection to humanity, and they were, like you say, they were just feral.
Right.
You know, those were really good. Poppy Z. Bright. I mean, if anybody's sort of the spiritual parent of the Twilight series, I guess it would be Poppy Z. Bright. But her vampires are really good ones. You know, if you want to have a little bit more of that romantic side of it, and you know, some people want to put that in their game. I like the feral ones. Definitely.
Yeah. I like, if I'm going to do vampires, and I haven't thrown them into my game, I think I would have like different types just to throw my players off.
That's good.
Get some inspiration from, real world folklore, and maybe throw those into my game. So like we were talking about the Easter vampires, they're invisible and they hop around. Or I think even within Eastern Europe, there's different variants of the vampire myth. I mean, if you go someplace like in Russia, it's different there about vampires than they are in Bulgaria or Romania. So I guess, doing a little bit of searching on vampire folklore out there, coming up with some stats, maybe. I don't know.
And please, no jokes about Transylvania being in Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
The actual castle of Vlad the Impaler is still there.
Yes,
it is.
You can go to it.
Mm-hmm.
And I've seen people put up some really amazing photos from this. I would definitely like to go there someday. I think that will take some game books,
Well, I think we need to talk about the ultimate vampire that was introduced in AD&D first edition. What do you think, Vince?
Oh, yeah, the infamous Strahd. Strahd von... I can't never pronounce his name right. Von Zakwella.
Zorovolovich.
Yes. Blah, blah. Yeah, I'm a vampire.
Yes.
So the ultimate bad guy vampire, do we like him? No. Do we feel for him? Maybe sometimes. I don't know.
No, I don't.
You don't feel bad for him?
No, he's a bloodsucker and he should be killed. There you go.
Wow. You don't feel bad?
I'm sorry. He's an abomination to all nature and life and should be destroyed.
You didn't feel bad after reading Strahd or anything? Or
I didn't read it.
Well, you have to hear his side of the story, too. He was trapped there, so.
He's evil.
You need to watch The Hunger a few more times.
Yeah, I know.
Oh, I've seen it, yeah. And I don't like my vampires sparkly either. Thank you very much.
Have you guys... Let's not get into that again.
Okay.
Jason O'Neill's on the soapbox on that one.
David Bowie's a great vampire.
I have to admit, yes. He was very good in that. He was. He nailed it.
Strahd.
Yeah, Strahd. Has anyone used Strahd in their campaigns? Other than other than Ravenloft module?
No, not at all. No.
I plan on using Ravenloft, maybe.
We actually used Strahd in a very long campaign back in the early 90s for Strahd, and the whole purpose of what it was, Strahd found a way to get out of Ravenloft, and what he was doing was he found a leak in the I guess the dimension where we decided and he was sending minions to look for the heart. Oh, in fact, I wrote it down too. It was the heart of some goddess, and piece by piece he was trying to recover that. And if he can recover the heart and intact it, he can actually take himself and bring through into the regular world and cause chaos onto the world. And that was the hook for the campaign, was the players were to stop Strahd from coming into the world. Because if he was unleashed from his domain of dread, he would utterly destroy the world. So,
okay, here's a question for you. Geek fight right here. Who would win, Strahd or Acerak from Tomb of Horrors?
Strahd.
Who's the Lich?
Oh,
What is it, a home field advantage?
Yes, who has home field advantage?
Well, does Strahd have to get through the Tomb of Horrors?
True.
Just straight up.
I think it would be Strahd, hands down.
Over a Lich?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I'd have to say so too, because a lot of the stuff that a Lich can do, a vampire can do too.
Mm-hmm.
But not vice versa.
I'm going with Strahd.
I'll go with the Lich.
Boo.
I mean, okay, here's the thing. I'm going to keep going back to this.
Which one's higher on the turn undead table?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not gonna call that enough.
No.
Oh, okay.
No, I'm not going to call that enough. But it actually brings up something that I wanted to ask you guys about. So going back to the this Leomund's Tiny Hut that was about vampires, one of the things he brings up is he says even if the vampire is scattered to the four winds, it can reform within 1 to 100 rounds based on conditions. If it is split, the only way to keep it from getting back together is to split up the parts or even the ashes into like different bottles and unable to connect them back together.
That was the Count Dracula. Wow. That was the Count Dracula mythos.
Mm-hmm.
That only applied to Count Dracula himself. I remember hearing about that one. Yeah, that was only Count Dracula, the actual person, Dracula.
Is that because he was the first vampire, the first official one?
Yeah, something to do with that.
Okay.
Yeah, so they're doing that to basically the vampire in general in this article.
Wow, holy cow!
That's a little too powerful for a normal vampire.
Yeah.
Well, that's the interesting thing is because Len brings up another idea in the same article of the lesser vampire.
Okay.
Oh, okay.
Right. So the lesser vampire is actually the monster created by the full vampire after killing or draining the victim. So there's a whole set of things in here. The question is the lesser vampire half strength or not? And if it's released to become free-willed, does it grow to become full strength? So he kind of puts that out there and asks people to think about this for themselves.
Oh, wow.
So there's some really good ideas because the vampire, I don't know how the Lich is in terms of followers, but the vampire definitely attracts quite a few followers and creates his own as well.
Yeah,
and
like Liches.
Come near that?
Liches, they would probably just create zombies and skeletons. They might attract some other undead like ghouls or wights, but
now with
they
all that
don't
said,
create other Liches.
The vampires got some really good Achilles heels as well. I mean, you already mentioned with the river, with water.
Right.
Running water is going to, or I don't know if we've talked about it off the air, but I mean, that's the thing, is it running water right there. But the coffin, I mean, the vampire has to at some point return to his coffin.
Right.
So
isn't part of the myth too, it has to have its home soil in the coffin or something like that?
It depends on the mythos. If it's a Bram Stoker, it has to be the coffin with the original soil from what it was buried in. If it's Whedonverse, it doesn't really matter where the vampire, who doesn't need to sleep during the day, apparently. If it's World of Darkness, no, you just have to find a safe haven. That's pretty much it.
Okay, so it depends on what flavor you want to use.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the way Len Lekofka puts it in here, he brings up some good coffin rules and says that even if far beneath the surface of the ground, the vampire must return to his coffin eventually, and he rules once each week. If the vampire does not return to his coffin, 1, within a week if underground the full time, or 2, every night if exposed to the outside, or 3, within 3 hours of being reduced to 0 hit points. the monster crosses over to the negative plane exclusively and cannot return. So he really keeps harping or bringing back the point that the vampire's essence is as a negative plane creature that has an existence on the prime material plane. So you can banish the vampire to the negative plane without access to his coffin. And then if he also says that the vampire has to read his spells in the coffin, that rest periods have to occur in the coffin if the vampire has magical abilities. So if you can, as players, find out where the vampire's coffin is, I mean, that's a great Achilles heel.
Oh, yeah.
If you're using that mythos.
Right.
Yeah, and I like what he's put in here. I'd probably have to create a vampire kind of my own because I'm not as big a fan of the Bram Stoker ones, but I like the way that he set up a lot of the rules.
All right.
Wasn't that one in the Best of Dragon too?
It might have been. Yeah.
I'm gonna have to read through that again.
He brings up one more good one, and that's what happens when you cast Raise Dead on a vampire.
Oh, okay.
Well, because on the regular vampire, Raise Dead is not going to work. Actually, let me go to immunity because I like another thing that he brought up. He says the vampire is immune to sleep, charms, etc. But he also says that suggestion will not work, and he suggests perhaps that some more do not work. Fear, confusion, magic jar, cause wounds, disease, blindness. Friends does not work. Web, stinking cloud, enfeeblement, illusions, polymorphs, feeble mind, raise dead, reincarnation, and power word stun.
I would think if you sat any vampire down in front of the TV show Friends, it would kill him, but whatever.
Well, yes. Wait for a daytime scene.
Friends don't let friends watch Friends.
Yeah.
Yes.
But go on, yes.
Yeah, so with all those magic resistances, what he does say, however, is that for the lesser vampire, they actually are susceptible to raise dead. They get a saving throw, but that could be a way to destroy a lesser vampire. In other words, one that's just been created. So some good Achilles heels you could put into them if you wanted.
Noob.
Cool.
A noob vampire.
Noob vampire.
A newbie vampire.
All right. So tell us what you think about vampires. We just want to move on to the most requested thing in the forum, as I was just looking over, the NPC witch class, which, Jason, you did a lot of research before the show about.
Yeah.
Well, I read it.
Yeah, that's a lot of research.
That's
right?
research.
Okay. Well, the witch is interesting because it's one of those things that you would sort of expect to have found in the character classes to begin with, and for various game-associated reasons, it's not there. And so this is not a PC class. This is an NPC class. It comes from November 1980, and I'm not sure who actually. Oh, this is actually a pretty authoritative article. So the author was Bill Mulhausen, but also assisting with this article as editors Kim Mohan and Tom Moldve.
Oh, okay.
So good. So this is some good stuff. So the witch, appears from time to time in various adventures. I mean, the most famous is Baba Yaga's hut.
Yeah.
But that's a different witch. That's not necessarily what's going on in here. What's really good about the witch NPC that they've created is that this witch is more healer, and it's more in kind of the classic, almost Wiccan sense, and they even bring up the idea of the Wiccan tradition around witches, that this witch can brew healing things and magical potions and things like that, can actually read magic user, druid, and cleric's scrolls, can do candle magic, brew poisons and narcotics, a lot of stuff that you would traditionally think of with a witch. The witch has their own set of spells that they can do, and I'm actually trying to go back and see if they're whose spells they're using, because
So is it? Do they cast spells like an innate ability, like a sorcerer would do in later editions, or is it still the same traditional way?
It's still the same traditional way it looks like. I'm just kind of looking back through here. I actually would have expected them to be a little bit stronger than that, because when I think of witches, they're pretty tough, creatures. If you're thinking traditionally, like the matriarchal types. But as far as the spell casting goes, it seems to be along the same type of rules as a magic user or a cleric.
Okay.
The only thing I'm having trouble finding is what spells exactly they are casting. So maybe I'll find that out as we go through it a little bit. But this is it's a very opinion based kind of piece. It's only about 2, 3. Oh, here we go. Here's some of the spells. Sorry, I missed out on a lot of it. They do have their own spells. So good ones like Shape Change, Charm Man. There's a lot of candle magic they can do, and it's the kind of things you might expect. Things like truth drugs, love potions, protection from evil or protection from good, all those types of things. So that's really useful. And yeah, then there's a ton of great spells here. I completely missed this. So the witches' spells, they're sort of somewhere in between druidic and magic user spells. There's a lot of things in here like speak with animals, speak with plants, hold person, hold portal, fireball. When they get up to really high level, they have 8 levels of spells, and some of their 8th level spells include reincarnation, rust monster touch, which you can kind of guess what that does.
Whoa, that's a good one.
Yeah, really.
Then it gets really interesting. Some of the ones like wither and youth. So, you kind of think of the mythical stories of a witch being able to restore somebody's youth to them, or to wither some part of their body.
Cool.
And then the one that I think sounds really interesting to me, which is temporary resurrection. Temporary resurrection. A duration of 2 days per experience level of the caster, a range of 6 squares. Only one character or creature can be affected on each casting. The spell will cause the affected character to be brought back to life with full powers, no saving throw. Spell is reversible with temporary death, causing the affected creature to be rendered lifeless for the duration. Saving throw is allowed for the reverse of the spell. So it's this kind of gets very Princess Bride. With the bellows, I can get him. I just get his last words out of him.
Jeez.
He said to blave, which means to bluff.
Obviously. And everybody knows that he was bluffing. So you must have owed him money, obviously, to bluff. There you go.
Hey, Matt, our producer, is telling us that in issue 20 of Dragon, when it was back called The Dragon, we had another witch class on page 11 of that issue by Ronald Pehr, P-E-H-R. Am I saying that right?
Okay. Let's actually take a look. Page 12, you said?
Sorry, it says page 11 in issue 20. Because I remember it came up twice, but I
in issue 114. I think I even have that one.
Really? Because good. Because the only one I found was that Moldave one. But yeah, I'm looking right now at the other witch. This one it's kind of similar things. So I see Wither and Youth are in there as spells that these witches can do. Inherent abilities like brewing poisons. It actually looks like the very same witch that maybe was expanded a bit in the later article. So this is a really good catch. Thank you, Matt.
And he also says issue 114, page 8. There's a revisited version of the class. So I'm going to have to check that because I know I have that issue.
This is one class that I never understood why TSR never included in anything, but this was really requested by a lot of people, and they only stuck in Dragon magazines. I don't understand why.
Yeah, it never was really official. Yeah.
Well, I mean, you're right. This is a really good expansion on the witch here as well. But as an NPC class, the rule, or not the rule, but the suggestion is that you not introduce NPC classes as character classes. I don't necessarily think there's anything wrong with bringing in the witch as a PC class. I'd like to see it tried out a little bit. I mean, maybe it throws everything off and it's completely not an adventuring type of class to play. But on the other hand, maybe it becomes a very versatile class.
I remember there was someone in who used to be pretty big on the old TSR. Like, I don't know, what do you call them? The Usernet forums? What they had back then?
Yeah, Usenet.
No idea.
Usenet.
Oh, you mean they actually had a Usenet group of their own?
Yeah, or what was the other group called? It was the Alt Forum, whatever thing it was called. Back in the day.
Usenet would always have things like, Alt, Rec,
news
Industrial.
groups. Thank you, Matt. News groups.
News groups, yeah.
There was one guy who was pretty big on there called the Web Warlock.
Mm-hmm.
And he used to create various different warlocks and witches for all the editions of D&D. So I remember seeing various ones from him that were pretty good. So you might want to look his... They're still on the net. You still can find them by Googling it.
Oh, sure.
The Web Warlock is his name. And he still uses that name till today, so...
Wow.
Wow.
We're getting in the Wayback Machine there.
Yeah, really.
Well, actually, Google Groups might still have it. Google Groups archives the Usenet going back to at least, I think, the early 90s, if not to the 80s.
Wow.
So, because, I mean, Usenet was around much, much longer than the web was.
Yeah.
So you might still be able to find those actual postings somewhere.
Well, I know he included it on one of his websites maybe a couple years ago. I remember seeing it again. I think it's
here we go. Matt just found the news group was called Rec Games RPG D&D.
There you go. Wow.
So if there's a server out there that has archived Rec Games RPG D&D far enough back, you might actually find them.
Cool. I know I think they're on AD&Ddownloads.com. I think I've seen them on there before.
Well, I think, honestly, I think one of the reasons The Witch probably didn't become a PC class early on is that whether it's gender specific or not, it sounds like it is.
Yeah.
And, all of the classes that were in there were very gender neutral. A fighter makes no difference if a fighter is male or female. They've got the same attributes. They've got the same chance of doing everything they do. And it might just be that The Witch feels like a gender specific kind of class.
Well, is she made of wood?
Right.
Oh, jeez.
And she weighs as much as a duck. Then she's a witch.
Yeah. So the Witch NPC class is a really good one. Absolutely great as an NPC to bring in. And we'll try to make sure that we can point to whatever resources we have for listeners to find out stuff on that.
I'm liking the idea of using the Witch as an NPC class on my next campaign. I think I'm going to do it.
Definitely.
I can definitely find a home for that. Yeah, I will. Absolutely.
Cool.
So thanks to everybody who requested that.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you to requesting that. If you want anything else to request, I think we have a request forum, and what you want to hear on the show are pretty much in our forums. Otherwise, you can just post up something in the general show section.
If we haven't done that, maybe we should.
I know I usually post something that says, what do you want to hear or something. I'll do that after the show if there's not one.
We could be like Casey Kasem getting requests.
This is your request coming to you live. Nick writes in saying his dog was outside the other day, and I hate those stories. And they were playing on the beach with a nice ball. The sun was coming down. Yeah, you can tell I was
okay.
We don't have a forum specifically for that, but you know what? That's all right because I like getting mail. So write to us and tell us what you want to.
All right,
that's true.
And you know what? Write us more letters. We've still only ever received one letter. So
from the Shadow.
Yeah, and that was great.
The Shadow.
Let's
have more letters.
Do you have that physical address so we can give it out?
Yeah, it's on the bottom of the website if anybody's looking for it. But it's 200 East 10th Street, number 511, New York, 10003. So that's the Roll for Initiative Dark Tower of Madness where you can write to us.
That's right. And Jason will take the letter, scan it eagerly into the computer so we can all read it and show it up on the air.
You will?
Yeah.
You will?
Yeah, sure. Why not?
Why not? Yeah.
Okay,
and that'll end this segment, and we'll head on to the out. Well, that's going to put a wrap on the show as we're hitting about the 2-hour mark now.
Dun, da, da, da.
Jason is cringing in his seat now for 2 hours. I can see it right now.
Well, a lot of stuff in our show. I think we've got a lot of stuff out there for people. We've got a request done. So hopefully we can add some stuff to your game to bring a little horror element to it.
Yeah, everybody, please go to the forums. Well, let's go ahead and make some kind of a thread for people to report what they did for their Halloween gaming, because I'd love.
Oh yeah, good idea. Good idea.
Yeah, go ahead, do that.
Capital idea.
That's a swell idea. So yeah, and so Jason, what's going on with Low Tech Con lately? We haven't heard much about that lately.
Oh, I've just been kind of putting that on hold for a couple of weeks while I take care of a couple other projects. Basically, we talked to the guys at Webcomics Weekend in New England, or the New England Webcomics Weekend. They decided they don't want to do gaming with the webcomics, which makes sense. They want to keep it just that. So no. I thought it was really good. They gave it some real thought and decided to just keep it comics only. So we're going to do Low Tech Con as a standalone convention, and we're going to be looking at probably October 2011. And right now, the leading contenders for location are Baltimore, New York, and Chicago. So waiting to see what we end up doing with that.
Baltimore, I could see. That'd be really cool.
Well, Baltimore is good. I mean, I think it's fairly centrally located. There's a lot of good places to do things. We'll just see, kind of how that goes.
I guess. Okay. And what was the super secret project, Jason? You ready to announce that yet, or are you going to keep us on hold?
November 15th, I will announce that, actually.
Secret project.
Yeah, so there's something that'll be launching on November 15th, and I'll make sure to tell everybody about that.
Cool. So I guess that's going to throw us out into the wild now, and let's see what everyone else says about the show.
Yeah.
Thank you for joining for our special Halloween vampire blah 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 episode.
Booga booga.
And we'll be back next week with more wonderful things. Hopefully with some guests, maybe. I don't know.
Who knows?
Who knows?
Who knows what we'll be back with, but we'll be back.
Keep it original, keep it old school, and keep it horrifying.
Keep it spooky.
And spooky. And just to annoy Nick, clerks with blunt weapons.
I don't like sparkly vampires.
Good night.
Bye.
Roll for initiative.